Hi, welcome to SueTube. Today we're going to talk about the new Addendum D, which is the electronic document delivery consent form. Some of you have been putting into the offer to purchase that they accept, the buyer and the seller accept electronically received documents. The hotline came out with the fact that if you write it in the offer to purchase, you don't have any proof that they have a means by which they can in fact receive and send. So they have the electronic document delivery form that they put together, and you're going to have to utilize that. They want to make sure that consumers have the availability to get those documents. As you know, everything has to be in writing, and so this is a document that's going to allow it to be electronically sent. There's several ways that you can do it. The first one is a PDF file. The problem with the PDF file is they would have to duplicate it and then send it back to you. You can also send it as an attachment, but they'd have to go through the same process. They'd have to show that they received it, and they'd have to make a copy of it, and then send it back. The best way for you to be able to get this consent form to your seller or to your buyer is by cutting and pasting it. Put it into an email to the party, and then just have them reply. That, in essence, would tell everyone that they did receive it because they received your email, and send it back that way. So that would be proof that you have the capabilities of being able to transfer it or transport it via the email electronically. The form is in your box. You're going to feel free to review it, obviously, but it's between three different parties. There's going to be the offer to purchase, which would mean that you would need signatures from the buyer, the seller, and the brokers involved. The listing contract would only have the signatures of the seller and the broker, and the buyer agency would only have a signature of the buyer. So you don't have to worry about all the lines being filled at the bottom unless you've got all parties wanting to agree to it at the same time. You can do it at the time of the listing contract, which is not a bad idea. You can then indicate at the MLS portion that there is a Addendum D on file, so that the buyer, should they agree to it as well, can just pick up a copy of the Addendum D that's already been signed by the seller and then fill out their information at the bottom. If you have it, you can have it at your open house if you want to, so that people can see, or for private showings, so that buyers, if they want to use it, they've already got that form started because the seller signed it at the time of the listing contract. Same goes with the buyer agency. The buyer would be able to sign it at the time that they sign the buyer agency. Again, you have to make sure that you're sending it to them. You can't just sit down with a seller or a buyer and just say, fill this out. You have to have proof that they can receive it. So it's not a form that you just fill out. You need to send it through your computer email system. And then you just follow it through with the buyer. When the buyer writes the offer to purchase, if it's already on file, the buyer then just has to fill in their portion. And if you have a buyer agency and the seller approves it, then you can send it to the seller and they fill it out accordingly. It's not a very confusing form, pretty self-explanatory, but if you want it tied into your documents, make sure that you send it via email so that you have proof that they got it that way. If you have any questions, see me, but I think you'll find it to be pretty basic for you. Second of all, that I want to talk to you about is, now that we're getting into this time of the year, this is the time where you talk to your sellers and let them know that while we'll continue to advertise and while we're continuing to do things necessary to market, I just don't think now is the time to hold a lot of open houses for your sake. This is the time when you should be kind of revamping, thinking about next year. January, we want a big push and start to market again. So don't hold open houses and not getting any results from them. Think twice. It just is not, we're going to lose. If you have open houses and people aren't attending, which you see that they haven't been, it's not a good use of your time. And let the seller know that we want to push as the beginning of the first of the year. Hopefully at that point, there'll be more people out looking again after the holidays, which is very typical of years past. Speaking of holidays, this Thursday is Thanksgiving, and on behalf of Steve and Peggy and myself, when we think of our blessings, you're right at the top. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and my best to your families.